Hi, this is Paulo. Welcome to the instructional video level 1 of connective tissue therapy and myofascial balancing. So what you need is a table. You need some oils maybe or some cream. You need some maybe soft music if you like, although you know oils and cream and music it's optional. You will need a clean room and a quiet space, a safe space so that the client can feel safe to relax and forget about his own life for a while. Well, what's important for you is to attune with your client, so to first relax, feel that you are relaxed yourself, feel a sense of relaxation in your own body, and then get into the feeling how is the body of the other person. So you hold the chins of your client. By holding the chins, you're touching two sides of the body, left and right, and you'll get a sense of the difference between one side and the other side. So that will help you to get a sensation of how the person is in her left side or in her right side, how that she feels. Where is the sense of mobility? Is there one side that is more mobile than the other side? Is there a side that is more restricted? Is there a restricted area in the body? You might get a feeling of, if you stretch a bit, if you kind of lean backwards, might get a feeling of what comes with you, what kind of anatomy comes with you. Is just the legs, or do you feel also you feel that the pelvis is moving? These kind of things is important to get a sense of the body of the other person before you really start to work, so that you know where you should work. The 3 steps is a model I created to help people relate to the tissue. And in these 3 steps, the first step is that you have an image of the anatomy, so that you can know what is inside and know what is under your hands while touching. By having that image, you can go into that image, you can go into the anatomy and then get a sense of what is the anatomy, get a sense of what is inside, so you get a feel of it, get a sensation. That's step 2. Step 3 is see if you can get a relation with the tissue, see if you can get a response by using the right pressure. To use the right depth, you will have to press, so to use pressure, but at the same time you have to relax into it. And you need to give space to the tissue to relate to that pressure. It's not like you're pushing the tissue away, it's like you want to meet the tissue, you want to fall into the tissue. So the pressure is a way of meeting, not a way of pushing away. Also, you cannot take yourself away. You have to get into it. Resistance is good. In our work, we work with resistance as a positive thing, because it's the place where the client is. When we meet resistance, we're meeting the client. If there was no resistance in the client, if there was no resistance at all, the client would be you wouldn't meet the client. Ask the client how he's feeling. It's important for you to know if that which you are feeling is the same as what your client is feeling, and also is added information. Where is your client? What is he thinking on that moment? Is he kind of carried away with something, or is he kind of dazing, is feeling okay? It's good to know where he is. Is it too painful? It's always important to know if the work you're doing is kind of fitting in that which you are experiencing and feeling. You also can say, do you feel this? Well, I'm feeling this. I have the sensation that there's a certain tension in here. That's why I'm working here. Do you feel that? Is it the same for you? That doesn't mean that if the client says, no, I don't feel that it's wrong what you're doing. It's okay, but it's always important that you work within the context of what your client feels safe and okay with. And sometimes clients do not say everything. So sometimes it's good to ask. You should work between 1 and 1.5 hours, 2 hours. After 2 hours is enough. Whatever you do after 2 hours, the body is saturated, it's been through a lot, and there's enough relaxation. There's a moment where this process starts, and there's a moment where this process ends. And so in between, you will see what the body is telling you to do. So just follow a bit your intuition, and follow also what is more sensible to do. Like, it's good to start with the legs and then get a sense of the head maybe, or the arms, like the limbs, and then work from there to more or less to the middle and see what you find out. After finishing, it's good to leave the client for a while alone, so that you can kind of feel, just take your hands off of them and just let them feel their own body. It's always good for the client to sense your presence while you're not touching him after you finish, because that gives them a sense of safety, that you are still there, they can still relate to what happened, but just for a while they are kind of sensing what happened to them. Something happened to them, and they need to integrate that before they go out. Always check with them if they are, it can be an abrupt step once they step from the table to the street. So sometimes just check with them, watch their expression, if they are kind of back in their bodies. It's important to get a feeling of clarity out of them. So speak to them a little bit, ask them how they feel now, if they feel some discomfort, or it's okay to feel some discomfort after the session, because maybe you're a bit dizzy, or maybe after the session you are kind of detoxing from, there's a lot of toxins that just came released in the blood, so you can be kind of tired, or you can feel certain kind of pains. That's not bad, that's okay. After the session, just give your client a glass of water. It's good for the body to reinvigorate, to get some freshness into themselves, and also to maybe some toxins, to release the toxins. I hope you enjoy the DVD. Don't be afraid to try things, and if needed, don't be afraid to ask feedback to your client. Next, we'll show you some images and definitions which you'll find handy to use within the techniques. Thank you again, and have a go! Pelvis and back. Technique 1. Start by placing both hands fully open, either side of the spine. Place your fingers on the erector muscle and have your hands cover the rib cage. Apply pressure and let go. This technique will release tension around the spine, the abdomen, the thoracic region, releasing the diaphragm and enhancing the capacity to breathe. Technique 2. Begin by placing the elbow and the forearm diagonally on the erector muscle. Find the right depth. Shift the weight towards the wrist and move it towards the lateral gluteal zone and the hip joint, keeping the elbow on the erector muscles and moving the forearm laterally. Technique 4. With splayed hands, apply soft pressure to the erector muscles. This technique will release tension around the spine, abdomen and thoracic region, releasing the diaphragm and enhancing the capacity to breathe. Never apply this technique on the lower lumbar region of the spine. Technique 6. Begin by placing the elbow and the forearm diagonally on the erector muscles and get the feel for the right resistance. Technique 7. Using the thumbs and the knuckles of the forefingers, maintain a grip either side of the individual vertebra, beginning at the cranium and work your way towards the pelvic region. Technique 8. Stand at the head of the client and with full and open hands, hold either side of the rib cage and begin a gyrating motion. This is a good basic back release. Technique 9. This deep pelvic tissue work consists of 4 techniques and is important to remember not to push the sacral region towards the cranium, creating a big lordosis in the lower spine. Clients with sciatic complaints, lower back problems or sacral-based problems may benefit more if you apply a soft pressure to the sacrum on the caudal direction. Part 1. Place your forearm laterally to the sacroiliacal joint on the origin of the gluteal muscle. Slowly apply pressure, but also adjusting your weight, finding the appropriate point of resistance. This technique helps to release the ligaments and muscles around the sacroiliacal joint, increasing blood flow around the pelvic area. Part 2. Hold the forearm straight above the gluteal area. Find the line between the sacrum and the hip joint. The piriformis muscle can be found here. Place the elbow next to the sacroiliacal joint and the forearm above the piriformis muscle in the direction of the hip joint and lean into the tissue. Part 3. Find the place in the lower gluteal area where the bone can be felt. This is the ischial bone area where the iliosacral ligament attaches to the bone. Part 4. Find the ischial bone and apply pressure to the inner wall of the bone. Pressure should be applied from medial to lateral and from caudal to cranial. Technique 1. Stand at the side of the table and look towards the head of your client. One hand holding under the knee and the other hand holding the knee above the patella. Create a circular movement with natural light motion. Technique 2. Stand on the table and hold the client's leg up with both hands. Place your foot under the gluteal region with the sacroiliacal joint on top of your foot. Then, push the leg up with your hands stretching the hamstrings. At the same time, bend your knee forward, pushing it into your client's knee. Helps the pelvis and legs to release tension, improving movement and flexibility in the vertebral column. Technique 3. Start by bringing the client's leg up. With both hands, create a flexion in the ilium, softly releasing tension in the joints. Then, with your left shoulder holding into the knee, bend forward using your weight to stretch the hamstrings and the back of the leg. This technique works on the back of the body, opens the groin area and the sacroiliacal joint, and helps lower back injuries. Technique 4. Start by bending the knee of the client, then sit on the foot to help stabilize it. Place both of your hands under the knee joint and, using your body weight, lean backwards. Technique 5. Bring one hand under the iliacal bone on the gluteal region as shown. Then put your knee under the sacroiliacal joint and origin of the gluteal muscle. Now bend laterally towards the side of your body that's standing on the ground. You can place your elbow on the knee for support and stability. This is a very good technique to work on lower back, the pelvic region, the groin and the hip joint. Technique 6. With the client laying on its back, hold the foot and place with your hand and all 4 fingers under the foot, offering support. Thumb wrapped around the medial side of the foot as shown in the film. Other hand above the ankle, moving the hip joint in a relaxed and playful manner. Technique 7. With one hand offering support under the knee, exo-rotate and bend the leg as seen in the film. Then, with the other hand above the knee, softly pull and stretch at the same time. Then push the leg into flexion and pull with the other hand. Then, with one hand under the knee and the other hand holding the hip, move into flexion and exo-rotation. Releases tension around the lower leg region. Technique 8. Technique 8. Start by placing both hands above and under the knee, elbow between the trochanter and the iliacal zone of the hip joint. Bring the whole leg into an endo rotation. You may add a bit of downwards force towards the foot. Technique 9. Give massage to the front side of the lower leg from the ankle upwards. With the other hand, apply pressure and find the depth you want to work in and use deeper stroking motion upwards. Always wait for the tissue to open and give into your pressure. Technique 10. The same as Technique 9, but now less deep, therefore quicker, and applied both medial as well as lateral at the lower leg. Technique 11. Place both of your hands on the forefoot, fingers holding the bottom of the foot. Bend downwards and push into the leg at the same time and move back in the direction of the toes. Place your thumbs at the arch of the foot, rotating both exo and endo, stretching, pulling, and bending each phalange bone, creating a wave-like movement in the foot. Technique 12. With one hand holding the foot under the heel, bring the leg up. With bended elbow, lean on the plantar foot at the calcanean region of the foot. Apply weight through the foot upwards to the leg. Technique 13. Place your right hand on the lateral side of the ankle, left hand on the arch of the foot as shown in the film. Bring the leg up and bend the foot in the cranial direction. This will stretch the tendon on the back of the leg. Bring the leg down towards the table and at the same time pushing in the cranial direction. Then pull the foot in your caudal direction, stretching the upper part of it. Repeat this once more before moving to the next technique. Technique 14. Stroke the lower leg muscle. Bring leg up and flex the foot in the direction of the knee with both hands as shown, with a slight rotation. Then pull the front side of the ankle, push, bend and rotate, making sure that you are involving the upper leg and hip. Technique 15. Lower leg up. Hand on the back side of the leg, applying some weight. Find the place between muscle and tendon of the medial hamstrings. And rotate the leg and push hamstrings medially with a slight caudal intention. Technique 16. With right hand, hold the ankle and bend the knee. Left hand slowly apply pressure into the posterior side of the upper leg. Technique 17. With your right hand, hold the hip at the posterior side of the trochanter and the left hand under the medial posterior side above the knee. Lift and let go graciously. Look at the movement on the foot. Make sure the low section stays supported on the table. Bring your elbow closer to the table and with your left hand support the knee. Very good to release tensions connected to the knee and the hip joint. Arms. Technique 1. Hold the upper arm using both hands and roll the arm in both directions, feeling the sense of flexibility. Remember to keep changing the rotation pattern. This technique creates space within the joints of the arm and shoulder, allowing the synovial fluid to function properly. Technique 2. Place your hand on the biceps muscle and elbow, and with the other hand, hold the deltoid region. Slowly apply pressure from the shoulder in the caudal direction and also in the anterior and posterior directions. This technique creates space within the upper arm and shoulder, relaxing the nerves and stimulating blood flow. Technique 3. Using both hands, take the client's forearm and wrist and compress the joints, obliging the arm to respond. Alternate this technique with extending the joints by using your body weight to facilitate the extension. Technique 4. Take the client's hand and with your other hand apply pressure at the wrist and move the motion towards the elbow. This is stretching the radio-ulnar membrane. Technique 5. This technique is the reverse of Technique 4, with the emphasis of reaching the deep layers of the connective tissue between both bones of the forearm. Technique 6. Use your left hand to hold the client's hand and use your other hand to wrap around the elbow. Apply pressure in the direction of the elbow, creating a stretch around the wrist and shoulder, while at the same time pushing the elbow from the left to right. Technique 7. This technique focuses on the bending and stretching of the arm from the wrist. The aim of the technique is to perform the stretch in a three-dimensional manner, affecting the entire of the arm as well as the shoulder girdle, neck and head. Technique 8. Wrap one hand around the upper arm, holding the humerus, and wrap the other hand around the forearm, holding the radius and ulna. Apply pressure during the endo-rotation and stretch the collateral ligaments of the elbow. For extra support during this process, you can use your elbow by applying pressure to the deltoid region of the shoulder and rib cage, pressing towards the lung and vertebra. Technique 9. Take their wrist with your right hand and take their upper arm with your left hand, placing your thumb around the humerus and vice versa. Using your elbow for support during this process, gently roll the arm into endo-rotation and apply pressure. Technique 10. Using both hands, take the client's wrist and begin pushing softly into the arm. Start a rotatory movement, pushing through the arm, shoulder, neck and head, while stretching and pulling. Neck and shoulders. Technique 1. With one hand, push on the shoulder blade in the caudal direction. With the other hand, go under the neck and make a rolling motion, making the neck rotate. Each motion takes the movement amplitude further. Technique 2. Softly place your thumbs on the upper side of the clavicula and your fingers on the lower side. Gently apply pressure, leaning at the same time so that you are working with your weight instead of muscle pressure. Technique 3. Place both hands under the neck, starting at the cervic-thoracal transition of the triangular trapezius that surrounds the clavicula and the lateral part of the neck. Apply pressure in the caudal direction, then slowly changing the direction to anterior and ending in stretching all the way up to the head in the cranial direction. Technique 4. A nice squeeze on the nape of the neck. the cervical region with all the muscles on the back of the neck, especially for the fascia around this region. Technique 5. Supporting the head with the palms of the hands, have the tips of the fingers between the base of the cranium and the atlas vertebra, that is the first vertebra of the cervical region. Ensure that your fingers are pointing in the direction of the eyes. That's where the base of the cranium leads to. Good for the blood flow from and to the head. Technique 6. Here we attempt to work on the muscles between the shoulder blades and the rib cage. With a palm looking down, goes between the shoulder blades and the rib cage. This is only the finger tops. The pressure applied is in the cranial medial direction, that is in the direction of the head and the direction of the rib cage. The other hand softly supporting, holding, and pushing the shoulder in the direction of the other hand. Technique 7. Create a rocking motion, and with the other hand holding the arm around the elbow, giving a little stretch on the extensors of the forearm and the biceps. Technique 8. With one hand support the arm, with the other hand hold the shoulder blades and move it in the biomechanical directions. Technique 9. Bring the client into a rotation to the opposite side. Slowly bring the shoulder downwards towards the lungs, gently pressing into these structures. Trapezius muscle on the back, the muscles around the shoulder blade, all in the rib cage and the lung. Technique 10. With one hand, hold the elbow as seen in the film. With the palm of the other hand, placed on the front side of the acromion, gently apply pressure in the direction of the table. Technique 11. With both hands apply pressure in the direction of the hand. Then turn the hand that's over the elbow and rotate the arm softly in the direction of the rib cage. Very good release of the tension around the elbow and forearm. Thorax. Technique 1. With both hands, fill into the rib cage. Apply soft pressure using your weight. Have an image of the anatomy and go into it, and make use of the 3-step model.
Technique 2. Use your homolateral hand to hold your client's wrist and bring your client's arm up. With the other hand, apply pressure with the fingers on the ribs and the intercostalis muscles. Technique 3. Get a good grip on the rib cage. Softly placing your hands around the breast, leaning forward, get a circular motion going. Let the movement come from your own body. Allow softness and fluidity to come through your hands. Very good for breathing enhancement. Technique 4. From the other side, lean backwards and hold the side of the rib cage with both hands, using your weight to do the stretching. Again, very good for breathing enhancement. Technique 5. Place both thumbs below the sternum on the bony area of the ribs. Softly place the rest of your hands, holding the lower part of the rib cage. Apply pressure in a three-dimensional way, from the sides, lateral to medial, and then around, from anterior to posterior. This technique helps releasing the diaphragm muscle. Abdomen. Technique 1. Slowly leaning backwards, stroke your client's left side, pulling upwards and to the right of the client. This technique releases tension on the lumbar vertebrae and the abdominal membrane. Technique 2. Stand to one side of the table and place your hands on the other side of your client's abdomen at the medial side of the iliac crest, as demonstrated, and then gently pull towards you. This technique helps to release obstructions in the large intestine. Technique 3. Here we are stimulating intestinal movement. Begin as if you have your client's large intestine in your hands and massage the large intestine using soothing clockwise motion. This technique is very effective to stimulate bowel movements. Technique 4. Technique 4. Standing at the side of the table, place your hands on the abdomen and slowly apply pressure to the abdominal cavity, meeting the abdominal muscles using a clockwise movement. Technique 5. Standing at the side of the table, place your fingers at the medial side of the iliac crest and apply pressure to the iliacus. Face. Technique 1. Apply pressure to the zygomatic bone in a downwards direction towards the jaw, softly stretching the tissue with the base of the thumb. Stretch the masseter muscle and then move from the upper lip muscle, known as the orbicularis oris, towards the masseter muscle. Technique 2. With both hands resting on the lateral masseter muscle, curl your fingers around the jaw and gently pull and lift the muscles in that area. This technique relaxes the throat and loosens up the atlas, which is a vertebra located on the base of the skull. Technique 3. Using both of your palms, glide to the sides of the frontalis muscle. Technique 4. Using the cushioned part of your hand and placing your thumbs on the eyebrows, make round gliding movements through the lower part of the face towards the chin. Technique 5. Place your thumbs above the front region of the eyebrows, with your index finger and middle finger below the eyebrow. Technique 6. With both hands, apply pressure on the frontal bone, directing pressure towards the mastoid and the atlas vertebrae. Technique 7. Place the thumb above the eyebrow for support, and place your index finger and middle finger between the eyeball and the orbital bone cavity and increase pressure until you meet the nerves of the eye that are located in the rear of the eye. Technique 8. Place your thumbs on the bone at the underside of the eye and gently glide over the skin until you feel the maxilla bone. Give the muscles of the eye a soft stretch using the thumbs. Finish with a soft pressure in the area where the zygomatic bone and the maxilla meet. Technique 9. Stretch the upper part of the muscles of the mouth and from the corner of the nose. Begin gliding downwards and laterally towards the zygomatic portion of the face. Technique 11. Using the thumbs, softly stroke the muscle that circulates around the mouth. Technique 10. Deep in the nose, inside the skull, is the femur bone. This bone is in contact with the sinuses and other regions inside the skull. Softly apply a few grams of pressure on the parietal nasal bone. And in contact with the client, see if it is okay to add a few more grams until you see a response from the tissue. Technique 12. Place the palm of your hand on the frontal bone, the thumb on the zygomatic bone, and the other 4 fingers placed on the other side of the head. Index and middle finger on the zygomatic bone. The other hand placed on the jaw. The thumb on a masseter muscle, the other 4 fingers on the other jaw softly rocking. Technique 13. Place your fingertips softly around the eyeball. Softly sucking the eyeballs in your hands. Head and central nervous system. Technique 1. Softly place the index finger on the side of the eye, where the wings of the sphenoid bone can be felt. Middle finger doesn't touch the skull. Ring finger at the back of the ear, the temporal bone above the mastoid processes. The small finger above the suture, the border between sphenoid and parietal bone. It's used both as a way of attunement of the body worker's attention. It gives a global sense of the tension inside the cranium. Technique 2. Softly pressing on the top of the head at the junction between the frontal bone and both lateral skull bones. If you're not sure about how much pressure, ask the client for feedback. Inside the skull at this level there are 3 membranes: pia mater, arachnoid membrane, and most important, dura mater, that continues through the spine. Also, we are relaxing the membrane between the 2 halves of the brain, the falx cerebri. Helps improve blood flow from head to the neck. Technique 3. Place the thumbs on the middle of the forehead and stretch the sides of the forehead bone. efficient technique to relax the head of too much thinking. Technique 4. Softly put your fingers on the lower edge of the mandible bone. Softly pull the head towards you, stretching the neck with the hyoid bone and the mastoid muscles. Very good to release tension around the front side of the base of the skull. Technique 5. Place your fingers below the zygomatic bone and find the adequate level of pressure and apply with stability and slowly glide downwards towards the neck. This is an important place of hold. Helps to release the neck and the ear canal, which is often tight because of the sternocleidomastoid muscle coming from the neck. Technique 6. Put one hand supporting the head under the occipital bone and the other hand above the frontal bone. Feel between the two hands. What do you feel? Notice every change in pressure and movement between your hands. Helps releasing tension in the head.
My full name is Paulo Jorge da Costa Guimarães. I do integrated myofascial balancing. I've been working for around 30 years by now. I first started at the Cushy Institute with shiatsu therapy. Then I moved on to rebalancing bodywork, to the rebalancing training in Holland. There I got invited to teach on the school, and from there on I started doing really the basic central of the work. I started teaching on different other schools, and from there on I moved on to developing the way I worked through osteopathy and fascia therapy, working with guys like Denis Bois. Denis Bois is a school in France, in Paris. He specialized also his own work. He centralized his work in fascia, in connective tissue. This treatment is basically for everybody. It works on different areas of the person. It works on a physical level. It works if you have a physical complaint, as a bad knee or overworked shoulder or basic problems. But it also works with the base of how this problem starting, and it works with the myofascial totality of the body. There are no age limits, but there are different approaches for different people. Let's say, so if you are in a special category of age, like if you are 60 or 70, of course you have to be taking in account that there are different processes happening than a child of 3 years old or 4 years old. Well, myofascial therapy basically helps the body to get into a more harmonious way of dividing tension in the body. I see the body as a tensegrity model, And tensegrity is a concept that includes tension, that sees tension as a way of communicating from one side to the other. So each individual organism in the body, each individual element has the notion of all the rest throughout the tension it's involved in, the tension field it's involved in. Yeah, it's interesting because what I see with what happens with people is through a release of the tension in the body, there is accompanying that an psychological and emotional process that people go through. They basically come out as a more balanced and harmonious being in different areas of their life. Like their relationships improve, their sense of aliveness in life, in the pleasure, the pleasure they get out of doing things, of doing their work, it develops, becomes bigger. Well, we obviously live in a very tensed environment, which actually is quite somehow um, asking a lot of our integrity as a human being, as a body, as a total organization, psychological, emotional, physical, chemical organization. So therefore, of course, we get, there's a lot of tensions. And what happens to our perception of ourselves is we get our attention tends to go more to the surface because we have so much things to do in the whole day, where so much there's so much competition to our attention that we almost have no time to sense ourselves during during our life. Well, you see, I always, this is a funny thing. It's just put it. Maybe you see what you do with it, but I always found it quite interesting to see how people in some poor countries somehow have a smile on their face. You see a black guy somewhere in Africa with nothing, with no clothes and nothing, probably didn't have a breakfast that day, and he's smiling. And I wonder why is this guy smiling? I mean, what he has to smile about? And you see lots of people working, in our society in quite modern environments where everything that's needed for that human being, it's there, and everything has been provided. And most of us, we don't really have much of a smile in our face. And basically, what I see is there's this sense of aliveness, of being alive, of the sensation that you're there. It's just more present in people where there's uh, less demand on doing things, on our attention, on our less sophistication of our needs. Yes, it does affect the nervous system. I'm sure that what we're seeing now is a large quantity of the populations in cities and in places where there's a lot of impulses. They are becoming depressed. They have all kind of different deficiencies like attention deficiency, all kind of other things. What we see is that somehow there's something happening to the nervous system that is bringing the whole body into a disbalance in the myofascial tension. Well, basically, the way it works is it restores the tension in the body. By doing so, it also helps the person to sense herself, to get to reconnect to a sense of being alive inside. Somehow people say, I feel more calm inside. That's what a lot of people say. I feel more like I wasn't there. I was not aware that I wasn't there, but somehow I feel like I'm more present. So it does. It incorporates any technique that you bring in. if you work with reflexology, it would just just work. You just allow it to. It will just enhance it as well, because what it does is it relates to the tension in the body as a positive thing. Basically, we like in most we see tension usually as a resistance from the body to heal itself, whereas in the way we work, we see tension as a meeting point of working. We work together. So if there is resistance, resistance means the person is there. Finally, the person is the body itself is expressing its way of solving its own problems. Is saying, well, I do it this way. So this is my resistance. So finally, I say, oh, okay, great. So you're there. Thank you. Nice to meet you. And from there on, it's like a dance of tension. The body doesn't have other language. The language it has is a language of tensegrity. It's a language of a tense aspect in the body. It's the way it relates to the outside world. What I see as an important part on myofascial balancing is that it works basically with this tension aspect of the body. There's like a tension field in the body, and the tension field includes all the aspects of the human being, the psychological aspect, the emotional aspect, as well as the physical aspect. So if there's an emotion happening that changes this environment of tensions in the body, if there's a psychology, if there's a thought happening, it will change this environment of tension. So when we work with this tension, we work directly with all these levels. Working with a personal touch, that means that we are working with the psychological and an emotional response on that tense aspect in the body. We're working with the person itself, but that's not enough. So we do need to adhere to. We do need to respond to the mechanical aspect of the body, because it's also a mechanism. It's also sometimes you do need a distance from yourself, but only being distant, it's not enough. You need to also to come closer to yourself. If you see a painting if you go to the Louvre and you see an amazing painting, you have to find out the distance from the painting, from that which you're seeing. But if you just go too far away, at some point you will find this meeting point where it does something to you, where it touches you, where it changes something in your. We have people like Steele, from the father of osteopathy, has been working with the aspect of fascia. We have Ida Rolf from the perspective of Rolfing. They're both doctors, but they were both interested in this aspect of the enveloping of the organs they were working with, and of the structures they were working with. More recently, we have Sutherland, and we have people like Danny Bois, that still works and still is very alive with working with fascia therapy. We have many people. It's just becoming more and more and more an interesting subject in the field of healing. Basically, people have been there. We are seeing that connective tissue is much more. Now we have the means to look at it as an alive thing. Before we were cutting cadavers, and and looking at it from that point of view. Dead tissue is not at all the same as an alive tissue. A live tissue responds. Well, the biggest recognition that I see from myofascial therapy is the way that people itself have been adhering to it, and the responses I've been having from clients and from people around me, and what I see as changes in people. A second recognition aspect is of course the aspect of it has been now recognized as a way of treating people um, as a natural healing technique. Um, like the insurance companies in Holland, they are paying my sessions to other people. So I think it's quite a good thing. Well, you know, this work has been teaching me so much. It's been such an adventure every time, because it it it's it's like it asks me to be better. It asks me every time to look at myself, to look at what I'm doing, to look at the principles of from which I'm living, to look at my patterns, to look at the way I live inside my body, to look at the way I look at life, and to redefine it, which is what it does to everyone I've been seeing doing on the table. Basically, I would like to say, have fun, enjoy, and I hope you learn a lot.